Episode 154, Lessons from the Stripling Warriors Mothers with Heidi Allsop.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
If you are a mother, there's no doubt you have often felt like you are floundering and that the ground you stand on is shaky. Raising kids is not for the faint of heart. While the scriptures do not give much direction on how to be a mother, there is one verse in the Book of Mormon that speaks volumes about mothering. Coach Heidi Allsop is on the podcast today talking about the profound impact the Stripling Warriors Mothers had on them simply by knowing. But what did they know? Come and listen as Heidi reveals the answer to that question and helps you on the path of also being a mother that knows. This is a great episode to kick off December, when we are speaking reverently of another mother who knew much as she raised our Savior Jesus Christ. Your impact and influence on your boys can be the same. You too have the power to lead your sons by knowing the things of God. Enjoy this episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast today. I am joined by Coach Heidi Allsop. Hi Heidi, how are you?
Hi, so good. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. We had to stop laughing so we could finally start sounding a little bit professional here.
Right.
Heidi, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Heather, for having me today. And thanks so much for creating this platform that helps so many people. So I, from a very early age, have been fascinated by human behavior, human relationships. So when I went away to college, it made sense for me to study that. And I graduated from BYU with a degree in social work. I then started working in a psychiatric facility with acute adolescents and adults and learned so much about trauma and heartache and healing and compassion. And it was such a great experience for me. And then I transferred from working outside my home to working even harder inside my home and spent the last 25 years raising our 5 sons. And to say that we've done every age and stage of boys multiple times is kind of an understatement. So.
Yes.
But they are great. I adore them. They are my life's work. And over the course of time, we've collected 4 amazing daughters-in-law and 1 adorable granddaughter. So they are still my everything and so much of my focus. And about 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I was introduced to life coaching, and it resonated with me immediately. And I wished that I would have had those tools and techniques my whole journey, my whole career in raising my family. And I just love the concept of taking someone where they are and helping them move forward and progress. And so it resonated with me so much that I decided to be certified and was certified with the Life Coach School. And now I get to marry all those loves and combine them all. So taking my education with social work and my life experience with raising these 5 sons, and then the tools and techniques from life coaching, and put them all together. And now I help women and moms raise their sons and enjoy raising their sons, and ditch the worry and the frustration and really enjoy the process in every age and stage, because we know they go through stages that some are better than others. But that's what I love to do now. And that's what I spend my days doing. So great.
I got to circle back to a couple of things you said. I wrote them down because they just stood out to me. I love that you said it's like being a mom has been my life's work. My family, my boys, it's like what I've done is my everything. And you also stated like this career of raising my boys. Yeah. And I love that so much. I have valued motherhood in the same way. And It's not always easy, and a lot of people I know feel differently about it, but what a gift that it has been, hasn't it, for us
Yeah.
to be able to be that.
So much, so much. And I think when we view it as our career, we show up in a different way than if we're just defaulting in between careers.
Yeah.
Being a mom is a career, and it's hard and it's rewarding, and it's all the same things that a career provides. It's just in a different atmosphere. So yeah,
Oh, for
I have
sure.
that.
Me as well. Like the statement, it's been my life's work, really resonates with me because like, I feel like it was all I ever wanted to do, and I didn't want to have any regrets. And it's been the best experience.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that a little bit with us. So
Yeah.
you're a coach for moms with boys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that doesn't mean just moms who only have boys, but
No,
but
we're
moms.
few and far between. Most
Yes,
moms have both.
I know.
There's
Yes,
just
they
some of
do.
us that we get getting boy after boy after boy.
This is a total side note, but my mom has 6 girls. So I'm the
Oh,
oldest of 6
oh
girls.
my
And
goodness.
she has 1 sister and 3 brothers, but her 1 sister had 6 boys.
Oh my
So
goodness.
mom had 6 girls. My aunt had 6 boys. So it was just always so interesting to me
Completely
that
different
yes,
experiences.
totally
Yes.
different experiences. But so I know most moms, when they're coming, or most people in general, when they're coming for coaching, they need to fix something. They want to change somebody. They want to make something better. I'm curious what it is that moms are coming to you with. Like, how do
Yeah.
they present? What's the problem that they
Yeah.
want fixed?
Yeah. Well, they come to me with two things that stand out. The first thing is that they think they're doing a terrible job, and they think that they're doing something wrong that's making their son act in a way that they don't want. And so they think they're doing something wrong. And the second thing is they think if their son would change his behavior and change the way he's acting, that they could both feel better. And so they search out all of these things, like they read the parenting books, and they ask their neighbor and their friend down the street who has a son, and they collect all these tips and tricks on how to change their son. And when they realize that that doesn't work, they get frustrated. They start nagging, they start yelling, they give the silent treatment. And really, what happens is, in this effort to make their son act better, they start acting worse. The moms start acting worse, and we start showing up in a way that we don't want to show up. So, what I found is that the most important thing that we can do as moms to influence our sons is to increase our confidence, to increase and tap in to our mother's intuition, to the superpower that we have in raising our own sons. Because Timmy's mom down the street may look like that it's working perfectly, but the tips and tricks that she has may not resonate with our unique family. And so really helping these moms tap into their own motherhood genius and their confidence and their strength is what makes these boys want to listen and want to be molded and shaped and guided by these moms.
Isn't it interesting that we are always looking outside of us for answers? A lot of that, I think, comes back to trust. We don't trust ourselves. We don't think that we actually know, but there is something magical that happens in most anything, in any relationship, or in anything that we're trying to do in our life, if we will just trust and turn in.
Right. Well, and I think that as members of the church, we also we can trust that we can hear and listen to the Spirit, which is such a superpower, right? If we can just look inward, look upward, then we have all of the knowledge that we need. And it comes back to that trust.
Yeah, I tend to believe that, like, looking inward, like, we are connected to the upward too, right? Like, it is just kind of this natural flow. And so oftentimes I think we think that if we're looking inward, we're also not looking upward, but I think they are, most of the time it's one and the same, that like that we have a piece of God within us, our spirit. And I don't know, I think it's a skill that we have to learn, but it's a powerful one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that we have our children, I really believe that we have them for a reason, and our strengths can really complement and bring out their strengths. And so when we can lean into that and trust that our child, our son, our daughter does better, acts better, thinks better, and so do we. And we can show up as the mom that we were destined to be, even during the hard times.
It's so true and so good. Because of the faith we've been brought up in, we often tend to turn to the scriptures. And there isn't a ton of examples in the scriptures about mothers and their sons, but there is one that most of us do know, and that's the Helaman and the Stripling Warriors in Alma. And what do you feel is so significant? I think, we all know that line, our mothers knew it. And I'm curious how you see that scripture. What do you find significant there?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I remember reading that story as a young girl and before I got married, and I thought, that is the sweetest story, these moms and these boys, and it's just all so sweet. And then I started having these sons, and I'd read the story and I thought, this is the world's worst cliffhanger. Like, who does this? These moms raise these amazing boys, and all we get is that their mothers knew it. Well, what did they know? What did they know? And the more sons I had and the more we got into the trenches, the more I realized I needed to know the answers to that. Like I really did need to know. So I began a quest that has lasted several years and studied diligently. What did they know? And how did they know it? And how did they express it? And how did they teach? And what did they do? And so now it's not, that story is no longer a cliffhanger, but it's like a treasured guide to parenting for me. And I've gleaned so much from it over the course of time.
So I'm dying to know then, like on your quest, I love that you call it that.
Yes.
What do they know? What was it that they came to find?
Yeah. Well, here's the amazing part is that for our time today, I really want to focus on 3. But I have come up, and the quest means it keeps going, right?
Right.
It doesn't
right.
stop. And I have 24. I have 24 that I found so far. And as a gift today to our listeners, I do have in the show notes, we'll link to it. I have a list of the 24 things that I found and the scriptural reference that goes with it. But today, for our purposes, I want to focus on 3. So the first thing that I noticed that these moms knew was that they were converted to the Lord and made covenants. And so these moms made promises and they followed through. And this is important because I don't think it's a coincidence that these boys said our mothers knew it instead of our mothers taught it. They just learned from what their moms knew. And so these boys were witnesses to their mother's faith. Kids crave certainty, right? They crave consistency, they crave confidence. And these boys' faith grew as they watched their mothers live their faith, as they watched their mothers make promises and follow through with those promises. And so the exactness with which those mothers lived passed on to those boys without having to be lectured and corrected, that those boys knew that their moms knew. I just think that is so important. So that's the first thing. And the second thing that I want to share today is that these moms and these boys were part of a community. And if we go back to the story, we know that these boys' fathers and grandfathers, many, if not most of them had been killed, right? Their brothers, the Lamanites, came in and slaughtered them. And so these boys were intimately acquainted with loss and trauma, as well as these mothers. And it's interesting that these boys said, our mothers knew it. They didn't say Timmy's mother knew it. They didn't say David's mother knew it. Our mothers knew it, which means that they were part of a community. And they drew upon strength of their mother and other mothers. And I just think that is so powerful. And we get that in the church in so many ways. And also, I believe it's our responsibility to give that. And so dropping judgment, dropping the criticism, and just really loving and lifting and serving your community. And there really is some truth, a lot of truth too. It takes a village. And we We have that, and so did these mothers. So that was the second thing. So they made and kept covenants. They were part of a community.
Love that you said the community, our mothers knew it. There's something so powerful about that. And I think community is, I mean, many people will say, well, why do I need religion when I can have a relationship with God without it? And I think community is the reason why. Like, we learn how to be who he wants us to be by butting up against other people, by serving the people that are in our community. And a religious community affords us that opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Well, and it provides opportunities for us and our sons to serve. My neighbors, my friends, my community, there are people that have taught my sons things that I couldn't teach them. And lessons that they've carried on in their life that are so valuable that they learned from someone in their community. So I love that that's one of the things we learn about these mothers.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Number 3.
Okay. So now I have the number 3. So number 1, right? They made and kept covenants. Those moms knew. And I think, going back just a little bit, that maybe it wasn't so much about what they knew, but that they stayed true to the things they did know. So maybe they didn't know so much, but they were just true and steadfast to those things that they were sure of. So that's the first one. The second one, right, is the community. And then the third one is that these mothers knew and passed on to their boys that God was always working in their favor. I just love that so much. So they were told that if they did not doubt, God would deliver them. And God doesn't always solve our problems, right? We know that. And that's okay. And physically, these boys, these stripling warriors, were preserved physically. But we need to lean into the truth that Christ has already delivered us. He's mighty to save, and he's so good at what he does. And he's already done it. We already know who wins the game. And that's so beautiful. So the third one is that God is always working in our favor. And if our kids know that, that gives them a confidence. And if we know that, that gives us a confidence too, that really can't come any other way.
You know, I was recently working with a client who was really struggling with this concept that God is always working in our favor, because in her mind, him working in our favor also means that we will always be protected, not necessarily even emotionally, but physically. And so, you know, when you said they didn't doubt that God would deliver them, I think it's so important for us to recognize that he's not saying, well, if you don't doubt me, I will keep you safe. Like, he's saying, like, your ability to just have faith in this situation that's where the peace comes. Have faith in me and the peace comes there. He's not saying, well, if you don't trust me, I can't protect you. It's like the peace does come from just knowing that he is there for us.
Yes. And he's asking us, don't doubt that I've already delivered you.
Yeah.
Like, don't doubt that. And really, if we lean into that, the confidence that can come from that is immeasurable.
Oh, hands down, hands down. That confidence, that ability to turn inward, to trust ourselves, all of it is connected to that.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you think is the same then today? Like, what would you say is the same thing? Mothers then, like the Stripling Warriors mothers, they did not doubt that they knew it. How would you compare that to mothers today?
Yeah. Well, I think there are more parallels. There are more that we have similar to these mothers than that we have different. And even though this is something we read in a book, the concepts are the same. My mom told me once, and it has resonated with me over and over again, that your kids can handle almost anything as long as they have a safe place to come home. And I just have thought about that 100 times over the years, because more and more we see that our home is becoming one of the only sanctuaries for these kids. And if the kids know that they have someone that loves them at home, that is rooting for them, they make better decisions when they're not home. They just become better people if they have that sanctuary, that safe place. And if you think about it, I know that everyone's experience with their mother has been different. And maybe your experience with your mom wasn't like the Stripling Warriors. That's okay. Because now you're the mom and you'll get to decide what kind of experience you're going to provide for your kids. And I think about it and I think, home is where your mom is. I see my kids come home and my kids range in age from 29 to 15. And those older kids come home and it's like they're 15 again. And they rummage through the fridge and they relax on the couch and they tease their brothers. And it's a place where they can come and not have to worry about the pressures and the stress that they feel outside of that home. So if we can create that sanctuary, that place of peace where we have confidence that they can do a good job, when they're not home, they'll act better. They'll do better.
As an adult, I still feel it too, right?
Yeah.
There's something about home, about being where your mother is. So there's a lot of peace in that too. So we as moms, I think we just want to innately think of our sons as Stripling Warriors. We just want to think of our sons as those Stripling Warriors, right? Like we know what they are capable of, but what if they don't know what they're capable of and they're not willing to see themselves as that either? Because I think it is two-sided, right? Like there's moms who know, but there also there's boys that have to know it as well.
Yeah. Well, and I've told my kids several times that I can see your potential, and that's both a blessing and a curse because I can see what you're capable of being. And when you're not measuring up to that, that's so hard for me to watch. But I think as moms, if we keep in mind that this is a long game, we play a lot of sports at our house. We have all these boys, we got to keep them moving so they can get their energy out. And I always like to refer to things like in a football game, there's 4 quarters. In a lacrosse game, there's 2 halves, right? And if we think about this, we're like in the second quarter of the game. This is a long game. And we don't change our game plan because second quarter is not going so well. We just stay steady, stick to the game plan. I love it so much when in the story of the Stripling Warriors, when Helaman's talking to Moroni and he says, all were injured, but none perished. Because injuries, mistakes, poor choices, bad judgment, misunderstandings, they're just part of life. It's part of growing up. And it's inevitable, right? So we need to be careful that when those things happen, we don't overreact and think that all is lost, because then the kids get scared. But if they can see our confidence and our ability to stay the course, play the game, use the game plan, they feel more comforted and more confident. We need to remember that Christ's power to save is far greater than Satan's power to destroy. If you think about that, that is so powerful to think of, right? Christ's power to save is far greater than Satan's power to destroy. And so what if we decided and chose to believe that the lessons that our kids are learning right now are the exact lessons that they need to live a productive life? That the things they're learning, whether it's through poor choices or unfortunate circumstances, that this is what they need to become stronger for something else in their life. How would our parenting change? What would be different in the way we parented those kids? I have a personal experience that we laugh about now, but at the time it wasn't funny. It's not funny at all. I remember this was several years ago, and one son in particular was just stubborn at the time. He just had a stubborn streak. And I can't even remember what the problem was, but it was a Sunday morning. I'm sure I wanted him to wear his church shoes and he wanted to wear his running shoes. I don't even remember the situation. I just remember getting to church and sitting down and being upset. Like I was so frustrated. I'm sure that I yelled at him and that we had it out, and he was holding on to this end of the rope and I was holding another. And I got to church and sat down, and a dear friend said to me, I was telling her about it, and she says, Heidi, what if that stubbornness is exactly what this boy needs to make it through life? And I just really thought about that. And it changed the way I parented him, because I thought, if he needs this, if this is one of his strengths that he's going to need, I don't want to parent that out of him. So we had to parent, I parented him a little bit different, and we had to come to some resolutions, and we got on the same page, and he was actually a delightful teenager. But as I've watched his life unfold, he needed that stubbornness. Like that is something that it would have been tragic had I parented that out of him. And so sometimes when we go through the hard things, if we can just switch our thinking and decide that maybe this is what this boy needs for something else that he's going to come up against in his life. Now, how do I want to parent that? It changes the dynamic.
It sure does. And I think that as a parent, if you're having a hard time believing that, I think there's an opportunity there for us to really question how we see God's true nature. Like a lot of times how we view God and what we like, what his consequences might be, or what our relationship with him is, really affects the way that we parent, or kind of we end up having a little bit of fear when our kids aren't doing or being the way that we think they should. And so when we can work on that relationship with God, it allows us the space to really step into believing that, yes, this might really be the exact experience that this child needs, because we're not fearful of judgment or something like that might come to us,
punishment,
or our child. Yes.
Yeah. And if we look at it in that they're learning from this, and so are we. What can I learn from this experience? How can I become a better mother because of this? And looking back on my career as a mom, there's some things I would do different if I had thought this different way. And there's some things I did really well because I've thought this way. And so not judging ourselves and punishing ourselves for how we are doing it, but learning from what we're doing, learning from them, learning from the experience, and then moving forward.
Well, and that is what I would define as repentance, right? I don't love the word repentance, but I love when I look at it as it is a new perspective about something. It's being able to look and change our perspective and like take what we've learned and move forward from there. It doesn't do us any good to beat ourselves up for maybe what we wish we would have done differently.
Right. Well, and when we do beat ourselves up, then we don't show up very well.
No. And that is such an interesting thing. You mentioned that earlier, right? When we think that our child needs to be different, then we start like showing up differently, and we don't like the way that we are parenting. And it just becomes this cycle. And so when we can love us and be accepting of us, we do show up, we create the relationships that we want to with our people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you enjoy the relationship more.
Oh yeah.
Yes, because these boys are so fun. They're so fun and do so many amazing things. You really want to enjoy them. And there is that special connection between a mom and a son. And I just don't think anyone has as profound an influence on a boy as their mom. So we need to practice showing up with strength and courage and confidence, and then they will start to do the same.
So I have to ask you this. This is totally side note, but you said there's a special bond between a mom and a son. And I've noticed that, I think, with my son. I don't know that he would say it. It might be a one-sided bond from me to him. And I've just thought, well, is it because he's my only son that I feel this way? Or if I had more than one son, would I still feel that same kind of bond connection? What would you say to that? Do you
100%?
Really?
Yes. Oh, yes. I just think that boys, they just love their moms. And there's something about these boys. Maybe it's because we are different, but in my experience, and once again, we've done a lot of ages and stages, and we've had hundreds of boys in our home. Boys don't want to disappoint their moms. So if we're constantly giving them this message that they're disappointing us, they're going to disconnect because it's too painful. They're going to, it's pushing them further away. And that doesn't mean that we accept everything we do as beautiful and like daisies. We do want to let them know where we stand. And that's where this story and why this story of the Stripling Warriors Mothers is so profound, is because they knew, they were confident, they were sure in who they are. And they were strong moms that raised strong sons. And I'm sure it was filled with a lot of drama in the middle.
Oh, for sure. We think that sometimes only drama comes with the girls, but
Yeah.
it's there with all.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And talking about girls, do you feel that it's the same? Like, do you think these same principles apply to the mothers of girls as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. Girls is not my superpower, but I have loved watching young women through the lens of the young men.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing, these girls are watching their moms and looking for strength from them. And as moms, when we can show up with that confidence and that courage, which some days is hard to do, and that's okay too. But overall, if we're working towards that, then our kids are going to pick up on that. The story absolutely resonates with both, or they wouldn't have put it in the scriptures, right? So the same concepts, like the 24 things in this list that you have to get because there's 24 things.
Yeah,
my
mind is like, what are these things?
Yes, with the scriptural reference. But if you take it and you pick three, you just pick three that you're already kind of doing and you really focus on those, you already strengthen your confidence. It already gives you a quick win in your parenting because you know that these things are aligned with God and how he wants us to parent. And then we just condense it down and we work on a couple and we become really good at those. And our confidence just naturally is going to rise and strengthen with your son or your daughter.
Yeah. Well, and I would say probably with anybody, right? Not just our sons and daughters, but within any relationship around us.
Yes. It helps us get on the same page because a lot of times I know parenting, sometimes you're not on the same page with your spouse. But if you're both in lockstep with God's plan and you both want the same things, then getting light and knowledge and information from the scriptures is going to bring you together. You'll get onto the same page. Yeah, most definitely.
Oh, Heidi, thank you so much. What a insightful conversation. And I think in so many things I'm intrigued. Like I said, I gotta go get this list so that I can look through it and maybe use it in my scripture study. I'm thinking about the different ways that I can apply it. So
yeah, it really is powerful to see how much comes from that little statement. Our mothers knew it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So before we go, we will link to all these things in the show notes, but I would like for you to share with people where they can find you.
Yes, of course. Of course. So I have that gift of the 24 things. And then also I do want to offer a free call. If you're like, Heidi, this all sounds fine and dandy, but you don't know my kid, come and talk to me. I think we can help you. I know we can help you get some confidence, get some clarity, and help you to be able to take a step forward in reconnecting with that son and enjoying him in a way that you haven't before. So I would absolutely love to talk to you. No charge, it's completely free. Come and talk to me. So you can find me a couple of ways. My Instagram is at Heidi Allsop Coaching, and just DM me there. Or my website is HeidiAllsopCoaching.com, or send me an email. And my email is Heidi@HeidiAllsopCoaching.com. So any of those ways, come and talk to me and let's figure out how to help you move forward in reconnecting and developing a stronger relationship with this boy.
That's all we want is connection, right? Like that's our human desire is and needs is to connect. And when we experience that even just a little bit and see what's available to us, like it's so encouraging to continue to just work harder and harder for that.
Absolutely. And so fulfilling.
Yeah.
And especially when you know you've done your part.
Mm-hmm.
Like our kids get to have their agency, darn it. They get to have that agency. But when you know you've done your part and you're doing the best that you can and showing up the way that you want to, all the rest just you have to have faith will fall into place.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Awesome. Thanks for having me. I've loved chatting with you.
I've loved it too. Thank you for our listeners for joining us. And we hope that we get to spend some time with you again next week. And thanks, Heidi.
Thank you.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.